mentioned before. This also is very important for versions. Even though we support those 27 vendors, and as I mentioned, we're a professional services company as well, so we get the versions sometime before the customers, so we add support for new versions in advance, but there might be a chance where you have a device where you got a specific version that we do not have. So this custom device support will also allow you to edit existing versions and products and add additional features. Just as an example, so if we're backing up a Checkpoint firewall and you put in your own file in the file system that you want to back up, we'll be able to give you the tools in order to add that file without our intervention. So you have full control on what you want to back up. Three-tier administration, we have a full administrator that can do anything on the system. We have a backup operator that can just manage the devices, manage the backups, check if they're failed or successful, and we have a read-only user. We've seen at customer sites where you would have, let's say as an example, 100 firewalls, and they all share a common username and password. Obviously, you would need to define those 100 devices within BackBox in order to back them up. Now let's say that you go into those 100 firewalls and change that password. And it's all a common password. What you would do in BackBox, we give you authentication templates. So you would change within our application that password only once, and that will apply for all your other devices. So as far as maintenance goes, that makes our lives a lot easier. We support key login for supported devices, so obviously Checkpoint. If you don't want to use a username and password, you want to use an SSH key, you can do that. We support file comparison, and I'll should have put an exclamation mark here. Only for ASCII-based files, we'll show you a side-by-side configuration changes between the two files. We're not a firewall configuration management software. If you want that, there are a few companies out here, one of them is Fireman, that will show you comparison, and they'll do real firewall configuration management. That's not what we do. We just do it on ASCII files on a low level. It's been a request from our customers, and we added that. If you want more information about this, Fireman are right outside here. Bulk import, if you have hundreds and thousands of devices. I was at a customer site a couple weeks ago. They had 150 firewalls and 500 switches. In less than an hour and a half, we were able to add all these devices. So you just set up an Excel file, and we can import all your devices in, which goes to the fact that the installation and setup of BackBox is really simple, even in large environments. So using this feature, you can add a lot of devices in a short period of time. And as far as installation goes, we support, well, let's start from the last one, appliance support. We don't have an appliance. We do have an OEM with HP, so if you were to request an appliance, we would probably sell you an HP server. So not really an appliance, but you can get that. Virtual appliance, so just an ISO file that you can install on any server. And VM, which is our most common installation. Currently we support VMware, Microsoft Hyper-V, and Citrix Zen. That's the easiest installation, it's the quickest, and since most virtual machines use their disk space from the internal storage or the enterprise storage, that's the most recommended way, because that way the storage is obviously redundant and backed up in addition. Some of the security, we're running CentOS operating system, which gives us the flexibility of having an open architecture, which allows you to do all the editing and the changing. So that's a hardened CentOS installation. We have an internal dynamic firewall. Every device that we add to the system creates a dynamic rule within BackBox. So that means that even if your BackBox server is installed inside a protected network, your management network, for example, people will not be able to access that box due to this dynamic firewall. Encrypted passwords, all the configuration is saved inside a database where the passwords are encrypted using Blowfish. So even if somebody gains access, I guess they'll have to spend some time decrypting that. IP-based access control, actual access to the BackBox web UI and SSH access is controlled by per IP. Obviously we support SSL to our box, and you can import your own certificates. And we use, I would say 90% of the time, secure access to devices. So we'll support a lot of protocols, SSH, FTP, SCP, HTTPS, and so forth. So as long as the device supports a secure channel, we support that too. If the device only supports Telnet, obviously it's not going to be that secure. So let's take a look at this. This is the vendors that we support, and if anybody didn't fill out the questionnaire for Checkpoint, and we're looking for that answer, so the answer is 27 vendors that we currently support out of the box. I'm sure that most of you recognize, we had somebody here that had 23 of the 27 vendors installed in their network. So we support all of these, and behind these 27, there's approximately 120 products total that we support. But as I mentioned, we are not limited to this list. Riverbed was not up here up until a week ago. A customer requested that. We got access to the box remotely, and it took us less than 10 minutes to add support for Riverbed, including the verification process. So just to sum it up, this is probably what you're doing today, and this is what you're going to gain if you're going to be using BackBox. Now, this is something that I've been asked to do from the business side of our company. Everybody wants to see their return on investment, so I try to calculate how much time it would take you to do what we do manually, which is probably what you're doing today. And I'm not going to talk about the ROI of a device that failed and has no backup. I mean, I'm sure that you all know that there's no price tag for that. If your firewall failed and you're down for 4 hours because you don't have a backup, we can't even measure that number, how much that's going to cost. But what I am going to try and calculate is if you were to do what we do manually, which you should be doing anyways, how much would that cost you, and would we be saving you any money? So this is what I came up with. So if you would have to write your own script, it would probably take you 2 hours per device type. So this is not per device, but per device type. So if you have 100 firewalls, you would spend 2 hours just writing that one script for Checkpoint, which is not that bad. And then you would have to test it, which would be probably 15 minutes per device. And then you would verify it. You would open the file, make sure that it's not corrupted. You'll take a look at the files inside, and you'll know that you'll be able to use that file. And the ongoing maintenance, I would say 5 minutes per device. Log on to the FTP server, open the file, make sure that everything's okay, and that you're good to go. So let's take an example. So 100 devices split up to five device types. So this is the calculation. So I would need 10 hours to write the scripts. I would need 25 hours to test all of this. And I would need 8 hours to verify it. So my initial setup, just to get the backup process done for the first time, that's the cost. Now let's take a look at the ongoing maintenance, which again, compared, what I've mentioned here is if you're only checking the file once a week, which we do on a daily basis, but let's say that you want to check only once a week. So 100 devices, 5 minutes per device, 8 hours a week, 416 hours per year, which would cost you this number, just to make sure that you have your backups. And on a 3-year total, including the setup, that's how much it would cost you. Now our software costs $99,999. I'm kidding. Our software costs on this setup of 100 devices roughly a fifth of that cost. So the ROI is very obvious, not mentioning at all that if you don't have a backup, the cost for the organization is going to be substantial. So this is our pricing structure. 2 types of devices, or I'm sorry, 2 types of licenses. Networking devices, so anything that's a router and a switch, and then the rest of the products, so all your firewalls and SSL VPNs and so forth. Obviously the networking devices are cheaper substantially. It's a one-time fee where we charge, in addition to that, 20% yearly maintenance, and with that maintenance you get support from us, web-based support. You get the product upgrades, new features that we add all the time, and the most important thing is you get the new device support. So any device that we add at a customer site is going to propagate to you using the upgrades. And obviously, as I mentioned before, the optional appliance from HP. A list of some of our customers, most of them from Israel. Right now, we're building the channel. This is the first show that we're doing with Checkpoint, so we're building the channel in Europe and the US right now. And going back to this. So you think you're backing up your environment. I've shown you a lot of reasons why you might be wrong. I'm not saying that you are, but you might be wrong. And what we're offering is a solution that will give you that automation and peace of mind that you have all your devices backed up. Okay, so I'll do a quick demo, and then we'll take care of the iPad. So what I want to demonstrate with this demo is specifically how easy it is to configure BackBox once you have it installed. So as I mentioned, the installation, very easy ISO file that you load up onto your VM. You load up to your VM, the installation process takes about 10 minutes. Once the installation is complete, you get this GUI. First thing you would need to do is just set up the general settings. Anything from interfaces, if you want to add more interfaces, your routing information, DNS, date and time, alerts, and so forth. Some general information that you might want to fill before you start working on the application. How many days you want to keep your backup. So this is set for 360 days. You can set this to any number you want depending on the disk space. So if you have a provider one that generates a 5.4 gig backup on a daily basis, obviously you would need a large disk space. But if most of your environment is Cisco based and you have a lot of small files, then you don't need that much. So this is where you would set the period of time where you want to keep, or for how long you want to keep your backups. This is where you see also the SSH key, and you can generate a new SSH key. Control over the users that you have in the system. So as I mentioned, the 3 types of users that you can have. And the last thing that you will need to set up is who has access either via web or SSH access to the BackBox solution. So once we have the general settings in place, what we need to do is configure our device. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I have a little wizard here. Checkpoint. Firewall 1. Okay, I will give it an IP address. I'll just dummy something up. This is where you choose your product. So this is a list of 27 vendors. Let's take checkpoint, management. You will choose your version. And this is where you get the options of which type of backup you want to perform. So CP backup compared to upgrade export. So as a professional services guy, if you were to ask me which one I would prefer, I would probably tell you upgrade export for 2 reasons. One, you can use upgrade export to migrate from one version to another, which you can't do with CP backup. The other reason is, for management server, if you were to run CP backup while your smart dashboard is open, that backup would fail. So if you did it overnight and somebody forgot the dashboard open with read-write, that would fail. So I would probably choose upgrade export here. The problem with upgrade export is that it doesn't collect the splat information, so it doesn't contain the routing and the interfaces and all those files that I mentioned before. And that's the cool thing that we do, is even when you back up something using upgrade export or the MDS backup for provider, we, in addition to that backup file, we collect those other files that I mentioned. So you are going to have your netconf.c file and your password and your shadow files and all those files that I mentioned, even if you back up with the upgrade export. So you're not going to be in a state where you only have the checkpoint configuration and not have the operating system configuration. Once I choose that, I can choose my authentication. So it's either custom, which would mean I would have to put in the username and password and the expert password, or enable password in Cisco case. I can use the template that I mentioned before, so I can have a template for my different types of devices, or I can use the SSH key. Okay, and then I would just need to provide the username and the expert password. Once I have that, the only other thing I have to do is decide if I want to override the global settings of the days I want to keep the backup. So I set it over there for 360 days. For this device specifically, I can set it to 5 backups. And the difference between backups and days is if I'm doing a weekly backup, 5 backups will mean 5 weeks. 5 days will mean only 1 backup. So you have full control over that. And once I'm done with that, I'll just move over to an existing device that I have here, which is a firewall that's running on my VM. I want to show you what that looks like. So this is the configuration of my device. Obviously, for each device, you don't have to click run now. Once it's inside a schedule, it will run automatically. But just to visualize,